Dan, many different players have been involved in Syria since the fall of the Assad regime. Israel has played an active role. Now, of course, those comments of the weekend suggesting that the Prime Minister wants to double population growth in Golan Heights has prompted sharp rebuke from many Arab nations in the region. Just walk us through what was announced and how the reaction has been.
Well, the Israeli pledge to encourage population, the expanded population of the strategic plateau, is not in itself new. It's been more than 4 decades since Israel annexed the Golan Heights, and it has regularly called for more Israelis to live there. I think what makes this relevant, important, perhaps salient this time around is what's been going on in Syria, just on the other side in the Syrian interior, where 8 days ago the long-standing Assad regime fell to Syrian rebels. As a result, the Israelis actually sent forces, ground forces, into a buffer zone east of the Golan Heights on a temporary basis, they say, expanding de facto the Golan Heights areas under their control. So I think what's happening now is the reaction to what would otherwise be a fairly rote cabinet statement about demography, about demographic planning, is being read potentially by some players in the Middle East as a plan by Israel effectively to add that land to its annexed Golan Heights territory. This is something that would trouble them, would certainly trouble the new Syrian administration when it arises, when it comes together. And I think that's what you're hearing now.
Dan, let me just ask you a question more broadly about how the Israeli government is viewing this rebel group, HTS, that have been tasked to form the transitional government. Interesting that over the weekend, the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, actually did engage with direct conversations with them. We're hearing of some Arab states looking to perhaps reestablish embassies in Damascus. What's Israel's view of the transition government right now in Syria?
I think the Israelis welcomed the fall of Assad. His family, having had Syria under their iron rule for more than half a century, was certainly enemies. Syria was an enemy country. It was part of the so-called Iranian axis running all the way to the Levant. Syria helped Hezbollah, which was until very recently the most potent foe on Israel's borders. There are no tears being wept in Israel for his departure. However, there is concern for what might arise in his place, given the radical Islamist roots of HTS, of many of these rebel groups. So the official line in Israel is wait and see. They're waiting for firm indications from the future administration of Syria that it would seek peace, or at least a firm, verifiable non-belligerence with Israel. And for the time being, the Israelis are taking action on the ground. I already alluded to the movement, what the Israeli says are a temporary movement, which will last at least months into that buffer zone. The Israelis have also been methodically dismantling, destroying what remains of Assad's military on the ground with almost nightly airstrikes. The Israeli approach is build that government if you want, but we will make sure that you don't have an army to inherit should you choose to go to war with us again when you do finally consolidate power in Syria.